deep in a cave. There is no light. There is nothing. And my next conscious memory was a voice echoing through the darkness, a large voice. Wake, for the sun who scattered into flight, the stars before him from the field of night, drives night along with them from heaven, and strikes the Sultan's turret with a shaft of light. And with that last word, Ken hit the light switch and the lights came on. As we shared breakfast before setting out on our collecting expedition, Ken took us on a tour of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, from which that quatrain was drawn, and did a very, very good job of convincing us that the campus's self-proclaimed atheist minister had committed the book of Genesis to memory as well, because thematically, the darkness was on the surface, the waters, so we got that tour of Genesis. And so on what was ostensibly a biology research collecting expedition, we started our day with a tour of literature, history, and theology. And that was Ken to me. His range of passions and interests inspired and drove us in a way that changed my life. It went far beyond his personal area of research and scientific interest through literature and ethics and inquisitiveness. And it forever changed my life, and I'm forever grateful. And if I can lean upon another bit of literature, Eliot's Prufrock asks, do I dare to eat or teach? And metaphorically speaking, I can say, Ken devoured them. And he encouraged many of us through generations to find and devour our own. And again, for the rest of my life, I'll be thankful. I'm Jim Ammerman. I was the class of '73, a biology major. I started late. I did not work with Columbia. Ken was not my advisor. I've actually spent most of my career as a marine scientist. Why would you come to Iowa to be a marine scientist? But anyway, after that last song, I'm not so sure it was a good thing. My advisor was actually Dr. Durkee. Nonetheless, Ken was the one who was most important in my subsequent career. As you all know, Ken was small of stature. That said, he was certainly the most intimidating professor I ever had. I took his evolution course probably in the early 70s, and either he told me or somehow I found out I got the second A because he wanted to give more than one. But Ken was, as people have said, a man of wide interest and expertise. So there was a group of 3 or 4 of us, my colleague, classmate Rick Sturgeon, among others, who were interested in marine science. Okay, so as undergraduates, you need, if you want to go to grad school in marine science, those places want a geology course, one course. Cornell didn't have such a thing. So Ken provided an independent study to credit at his house for 3 or 4 of us on continental drift and seafloor spreading. This was the early 70s, so I went to Berlin Library to look at some literature and found a review paper that said 101 objections to continental drift. So it was still a very controversial idea at the time. Nonetheless, ironically, about 10 years later, my first job was at the lab where some of the best evidence for it was gathered. So, but actually, even more recently, I did not keep in touch with Ken, which was a mistake. Although I heard from my colleague Rick, I mentioned before, that he followed his students and their progress. And so when I saw his obituary, I realized he was a fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, which I had not been aware of. And I'm wondering now, since I was nominated for that about 20 years ago, totally out of the blue, and it's somewhat unusual in my field and stage I was at that time, that if it wasn't Ken responsible for that as well. So he had major influence, and I really appreciate it.
My name is Pete Bundy, and I don't remember the first time I met Ken. I was, I think, 2 or 3 weeks old, and I've been told the story many times that Ken saw me and said, well, I call that about everybody's baby. I was about 4 or 5 years old when Ken retired, and I was a lazy child who loved stories but didn't particularly feel like learning to read and wasn't particularly active at it, so that I basically spent all of my time wandering around finding anyone who did know how to read and demanding that they read to me. And Ken was looking for things to do with the few extra hours he had, and so I was a very shy and lonely child. I didn't have many friends, and so once a week I would go over to Ken and Phyllis's apartment. Phyllis would greet me and serve me snacks. Ken would spend half an hour or so telling me his stories, and as I got older, he was always telling me everything. I mean, so many people have talked about Ken's interests, and I got to hear about so many of them, and then he read me all of his favorite stories. We read everything that Robert Louis Stevenson ever wrote. We read The Hobbit and the entirety of The Lord of the Rings together, 2 or 3 hours a day, once a week. And then I left high school rather abruptly and got to work in his lab, where he mentored me in sciences to help me get into Grinnell. And one other thing, we brewed tea together, and one day that I remember is the day that we almost burned down the registrar's office. And, we'd put the tea on in the Erlenmeyer flask, and we'd gone into the room next door to do the brief curricular portion of my science education with Ken, which was mostly just him. It was just being around Ken for the most part. But we looked at the textbook occasionally, and so we'd gone in to do that, and then we saw things beginning to float down, and what's that? We looked up, and the rubber tubing had come disconnected from the Bunsen burner and was spraying flames all over the laboratory. And it was located right next to the rack that had all of his specimen jars of 190 proof alcohol. And then he said, oh my goodness, and rushed in. The registrar came in and said, we're smelling something funny. Is everything all right in there? Ken was...
privilege to be part of a formal program, but I would like to share a little informality from my 49 years of knowing Ken. Ken had a leitmotif in his life. I would say it was good fortune. He used to good fortune in his family, good fortune in the war, and good fortune in his intellectual life. And some of you had mentioned his love of Phyllis. I got to observe this many times in visiting them at their home, especially in the last few years. He used to tell me, marrying Philip was the smartest and luckiest thing I've ever done. And you could see that in the relationship. People have referred to Ken's energy. I used to say to myself, my God, he's inherited a lot of serotonin. But Phyllis was a perfect match. She was kind of an antidote to that kind of enthusiasm, but still a great, loving companion. I got a dramatic example of this one time when they invited Ken to lunch, and we were nearly finished. I got ready to pay the bill. He said, you can't pay. I said, what do you mean? I invited you to lunch. He said, well, Phyllis said you can't pay. said, I lived through the war. I didn't fear the Germans, but Phyllis I feared. Ken was so interesting because he was interested in so many things. He really was the kind of Renaissance man. And we used to talk about everything, including religion. His atheism has been alluded to here. And he used to brag about it. And I would say, Ken, you're not an atheist. You're an agnostic. You have no more reason to believe there isn't a God than there is. And he would say, well, I've got proof I'm an atheist. After my lecture in the chapel, Herb Fishman heard somebody downtown at the barber shop say, ah, yeah, Christiansen. He's that atheist minister. Then Ken would give me a spiritual reading, Mark Twain's Letters from Earth, in which the head angel comes down to earth and writes back to his colleagues and says, you can't believe these people. They have a book that tells them that after they die, they go to a place where they don't get to do anything they like to do. Well, about Ken in the afterlife, I console myself with the theology that God is perfect and infinite. Therefore, he has a perfect and infinite sense of humor. And if there is a heaven, Ken is there. He's probably found Mark Twain and they're having an uproarious time. He was known at any moment to break into monologues and soliloquies. Shakespeare, great love of opera. I've watched many operas with Ken Christiansen. And he had committed to memory whole arias, including some in Italian. And he would hear a bit of the aria, and then he would say, I would give my right arm to sing that. And then he couldn't resist the temptation to burst into song. Now, Ken had vocal music was not. And I would think but not say, Ken, it's going to take at least an arm and a leg. He wanted his epitaph to be from Pagliacci. The last line of the opera is La commedia è finita. The comedy is over. Well, he was also a great lover of Shakespeare, so I would go there to find Ken's epitaph, and that is, he was a man, take him for all in all. I shall not look upon his light again.
That would be the end of the program. However, I have a real privilege and honor, and if you think I had trouble getting through my talk, you will when you find out about this one, folks. This was confirmed yesterday. It is official. The college has given me the right to make the announcement. In honor of Professor Christiansen's legacy, gifts have been made to name the new outdoor learning spaces as associated with the Humanities and Social Sciences Center project for Ken Christiansen, so that all the outdoor classrooms between the new HSSC building and Noyce will be named for Kenneth A. Christiansen. So I just want to say this is an unbelievably generous gift from some donors who at this time still wish to remain anonymous, but lovers of Ken Christiansen, obviously. I'd like us as a group gathered here in his memory to thank these donors for this remarkably generous and wonderful acknowledgement of this very special man. Let's for the donors.
thank you all for coming today to celebrate Ken's life. It's been a great honor to be with you. We're having a reception